Noon. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us and thank you for your patience. This is the work session for January 21st, 2025 for the best place in Iowa to raise a family and grow a business. Welcome, everyone. And we'll just note that we're having some technical difficulties. People joining us online are able to see the presentations and hear us, but they can't see our beautiful faces. So, okay, we will proceed with the meeting. Our first presentation is our annual presentation for the Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Alliance, one of our partners in the region. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Doug Newman, Executive Director at Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Alliance, and a weak voice, but also because I think it would be excited to listen to Jody than to me. I also brought up Jody Staples, who's been her day on the job as our new talent director, and she'll talk to you a little bit about the workforce initiatives as well. Here I'm doing a part of the presentation today to her. First of all, thank you all for your investment in the Economic Alliance, your support of what we do, your long-standing membership and partnership really in the work that we do. We see each other often. I think the state of the relationship is certainly very good, and I hope you think so too. I think we've had a lot more just kind of quick check-ins, communication. Mayor, a lot of this has been through this collaborative growth initiative that we've had more contact with you, but certainly I've met frequently with Ryan. We got to go to DC together. Kim was also on that trip. So a lot of interaction between Marion and the Economic Alliance, and I think that's good. It's more than just an investment that you're making. It's a partnership that we've built. It's a relationship that we built. So thank you all for that. I guess the one other thing that I would say that I feel like is more and better than maybe it traditionally was the opportunity to talk about a few more things on the horizon. Some of those things certainly are related to workforce growth and what we do with the workforce population. But Ryan and I also have been able to think ahead 10, 20 years. What are the kind of infrastructure needs? What are the kind of policies? How do we sustain growth in this community, in this region over a long period of time? And I love discussions like that, and it's good to be connected with you guys on some of those discussions as well. I also, before I get into some of the specifics about our work and what your investment in us funds, want to give a quick shout out to the Marion Chamber, to your Main Street group, and to Medco, great friends. Great partners. We do a lot of things together. I think the most highly visible of those is, of course, the ambassador program and their red coats and their golden shovels and celebrating successes in all of our communities throughout the region. It only makes sense to do those things together that can be more efficiently and effectively done together. And that's a great partnership. And actually, we have several other similar partnerships with the Chamber, with Medco, and with Main Street. We're getting ready for our big annual meeting a week from today. We'll be down at the DoubleTree with 800 or 900 people, and we'll go into a little bit more detail there today. But you guys kind of get the sneak preview a little bit of this because of the timing of our presentation today. And just a couple of things from each of our 5 core functions. We really create the organization and design the organization around 5 core functions and think about goals, priorities, metrics within each of those 5 areas. They all, of course, relate to our mission, which is to drive economic and workforce growth strategies and to help businesses succeed. But they're pretty different in nature as well. When you think about economic development, our core function of economic development, several really big wins with Google database project and another database project here being announced next week. But along with that really comes a change going forward. For the last number of years, we've had 1,800 acres of development-ready land to market. And with those 2 big wins, that no longer exists, right? And you start to look at some of the smaller places, some of the 25 and 50 and 75 acre parcels that might get a little bit more attention. And certainly that is, you got some great land availability and development ready land in Marion. We'll be doing a lot more marketing, I think, of smaller projects in the coming few years based on that. In our business support core function, small business, family-owned business, we really have in multiples doubled down on our buy local programming. We used to do that really only around the holidays, you know, at Christmas time. Oh, be sure to support the local mom and pop show. But really, through the pandemic, we created a number of additional programs to try to support local businesses, and we've continued those. And it's really a year-round initiative right now. We have gift cards to try to support local businesses. We've got Restaurant Week coming up. There's several Marion restaurants that are part of Restaurant Week. I think the second and third week of February here in just a couple of weeks. And efforts throughout the course of the year to talk about the economic impact of a dollar spent at a locally owned place versus a dollar spent online or versus a dollar spent in a chain store. We talk a lot about that economic impact and try as much as possible to try to get people to support their local businesses. In our public policy core function, talked a little bit about the DC trip that we made together this year. That DC trip didn't happen for many years. It used to happen back in Sarah's day, and then for a variety of reasons, it went away, and we didn't do it for a number of years, and it just restarted. And I think, and I'll defer to you for reactions on that as well, but I think everybody was happy and impressed with the trip, and I think that will be an annual thing as well now. Appreciate your support of our events around public policy. When we go over to the State House, it's better to go as a group, as a region. When we do Policy on the Rocks events, when we do our legislative launch event, it's better for legislators to see and hear all of us working together. And I know that our agenda is very much synonymous with yours in terms of pro-growth, pro-business agenda. A little tangent on public policy that I always like to note, it's, you know, some people maybe would think that this isn't, you know, it's non sequitur with the rest of our public policy agenda, but we talk a lot about how important civility is in politics. It's a really troubling and challenging day in politics now. And we still have the opportunity as local governments, as local businesses, working on issues that by nature might be more bipartisan than some of the things on the federal level, to try to have conversations that are inclusive, that are fact-based, that are open to different perspectives. And we've made some real efforts to call out good examples of civility when they happen. We've published those in our newsletters. We've talked about those in e-blasts, and I've talked about them in public statements like that. So that is really part of our public policy agenda as well. I also want to give a shout out. I know very well Dustin Miller, and I know you guys are working now with Dustin. Want to give a shout out to you for taking that step. Not a lot of cities have done that and have a lobbyist advocating for themselves. And I'm telling you the truth in that when I'm involved in statewide conversations, the city of Marion is getting mentioned for being at the table and part of the discussions on property tax reform. There's a lot of cities that are just like dug in, status quo, we're going to fight any change that might come, and not really looking for innovative solutions where maybe there's a win-win, or at least maybe cities don't lose as bad. This guy gets mentioned in those conversations. I know Ryan has been a part of those conversations and is really admired across the state for being one of the cities and one of the city managers that is willing to be at the table in a more productive way than too many other cities are. So certainly want to mention that. In community development, we certainly are working hard on the Cedar Rapids downtown plan, but our Community Development Innovation Council continues to have representatives from Marion, Main Street, from Czech Village, Newbo, from the MedQ as well. There are a lot of issues when you think about core district development that work similarly in all core districts. So we're certainly proud of that core function as well. And finally, then on the workforce, when we started the Economic Alliance in 2012, bringing the Chamber and Priority One and the Downtown District together, we only had 4 core functions, and workforce was just a subcomponent of economic development. Today, workforce is arguably our most important core function. It's one that we're going to add substantial resources to. It's one that we're partnered with you and the city of Cedar Rapids and the city of Hiawatha to try to drive. And I'm going to let Jody talk to you a little bit about that.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Jody Schaefer, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself just because I'm new to the table and kind of my qualifications for this role. So I have spent most of the last 20 years in higher education. I worked for the Tippie MBA at the University of Iowa in recruiting and admission, and then running the program for about a year. For about 11 years, was a part of that organization. And so that is probably the most in sync with what this job is, because if you think about what you do to attract students to the area, we were going out to major metropolitan areas to try to bring people back to Iowa. Usually, in most cases, it was individuals who had left the state. They were working, young professionals. They had their bachelor's degree, and we were trying to get them to come back and get their MBA. And if you go outside of the state of Iowa, sometimes people don't even know where the state is or where the university is for sure. So that was similar in that we really had to brand, market, and recruit to that program. From there, I went to work in Coralville for a medical device company where I worked in human resources, talent management, talent acquisition. So on the business side, I was bringing people to the business, a lot of times from Chicago, California, because medical device experience oftentimes couldn't find it in Iowa. And so that we were recruiting pretty heavily from different areas. And then finally, I came from Cornell College, where I was preparing students to go into the workforce. So on that side of things, what did it take? What do businesses want from individuals, young professionals in the workforce? So that's my background. So when I heard about this opportunity, this collaboration between the mayors and the Economic Alliance, it excited me. It's kind of a culmination of everything that I've been doing. And I'm learning a ton about city government and politics and all of that. And so that's been fun. But yes, day 6, and we have a lot to accomplish. So many great things have been going on, getting to know Medco a little bit and what they're doing. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a timeline for the next 3 years. Mostly, the first year is when the heavy lifting of just getting the infrastructure in place will happen. But of course, in year 2 and 3, then we'll really start to execute on all of those things. But what I have learned and what I've seen, there's a nice substantial report that was done as the mayors and the Economic Alliance were collaborating on this, and they hired out an organization to do a report on workforce and talent attraction. And so a lot of ideas in that report, many that make a ton of sense and we can execute on right away. But the first few things we're going to be doing, obviously identifying the stakeholders, the partners, and building relationships. So just making sure, and that might not be just in these communities, but at the state of Iowa level. So we will be out there talking to people and learning what everybody wants from this initiative, and putting that in play. We're also going to look at reviewing existing resources and initiatives. So we know that there's all kinds of initiatives out there, and as much as we cannot overlap on things and be as efficient as possible, I think that's important, but also capitalize on all the great things that are going on. We are going to develop an innovation council. So this is not unique for talent attraction. This is something the Economic Alliance is doing in other areas. But for talent attraction, I think it's going to be really crucial to have a great set of partners to help us understand how to best market the area. Marketing is going to be a huge piece of this, as you can imagine, everything from a website to direct messaging, targeted marketing. And that's pretty substantial, and it's a pretty substantial resource need, both from a financial and a personnel standpoint. So having a good advisory council, many of those people who have been doing marketing, is going to be key in ensuring that we do that as effectively and efficiently as possible. So then once we have established kind of that innovation council, we're going to put out an RFP for a an agency to help us with marketing. And, that's going to take some time, probably maybe 6 months. This is ballpark right now. But to get that marketing agency in place, we're not sure if it's going to be 1, maybe 2, what that resource allocation is going to look like. What's the technology that is the infrastructure for all of this? There are some technology needs. But those are the things we'll need to put in place. And then if you think about branding and marketing, there's also recruiting. So kind of boots on the ground, once we've done all of these things, how do we start to recruit people? These are like one-on-one conversations, right? And how do we engage partners in the communities to help us do that? We need to ensure we have metrics. So what does success look like? I think it's a little bit harder for an initiative like this. Because we can look at some of the marketing metrics, we can look at website traction, but those are pretty soft metrics. It gets a little harder when we think about who's actually here from what we've been doing and who is there in our businesses and how do we actually track that. So that's something we'll be looking at. We'll be shoring up the budget. So understanding how much things cost, where our resources are coming from, how much fundraising we'll need to do. So that kind of plays right into fundraising in year 2. So I won't go into year 2 and 3, but really it's more of the same, but then it's kind of more heavy fundraising, continuing to build out those budgets and metrics, regional promotion, and all that goes into this whole marketing and recruiting plan that we've talked about. In addition to all of this, there's workforce retention. So a lot of the things that we're already doing, so things like Ignite CR, there's a career services day, Impact CR, some of the things that we partner with Medco on, those all, will continue, and we are going to make them as strong as they possibly can be and advance them in different ways. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're looking at for talent attraction. I'll probably have more to share in 6 months, of course, but right now that's kind of where I'm thinking about talent attraction.
Let's open this up for any questions that you might have, and I'd have a quick closing comment if you don't have any questions. But what questions does council have for Jody or me?
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to clarify, since Will brought it up, that when you were saying that it was a while ago during my time, we used to go to DC, that doesn't mean I'm old.
Oh.
He wanted to ask if you meant I was old. Just because I'm older than him. So anyway, just want to clarify that. Secondly, this is more on the workforce side, because some of us unfortunately have been around for a very, very long time. But I'm not old. How different is this initiative from the previous workforce initiatives that lived back in the days, Doug's earlier days and my earlier days?
And Jody, feel free to answer this in your own way as well. I mean, some of the infrastructure will be very much the same. And I think what is new and hopefully a lot more sophisticated are the marketing messages, coming at that with a lot more science behind what resonates with people, and the targets, the geographic targets, right? I feel like in the past that was scattershot and a little bit of this. There's a lot more science that's going in now to where we might see some in-migration and where we might see industry sectors and people willing to move. So I think it's a more sophisticated approach. It also, there's no intent to try to recreate a regional organization, right? The City of Marion as the City of Marion, the Economic Alliance as the Economic Alliance are all going to do this together in a cooperative partnership. Where back in 2017, of course, with ICR Iowa, we spent a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of energy supporting an additional organization. And there's really nobody that wants to go back down that road again. And then the last thing I would say that doesn't change. At the end of the day, workforce attraction is just hard work, right? It's a lot of just one-to-one. Like we win in ones on workforce attraction. We don't win in hundreds. And that part doesn't change, right? I think what we hope to do in this is that Jody can't be the only person recruiting people to this thing. We want to create pride and a spirit of championing among everybody, because we all have opportunities from time to time to talk to people that might be prospects to move here. And if we can all get on the same page in terms of what are our assets, what messages resonate the best, how can we speak with the most passion about our community, we all start working on that. And then if you're winning by ones and I'm winning by ones and she's winning by ones, that finally starts to add up into something meaningful and real.
Yeah, and so on that, and in the research, is there an identification point of what industries are the gaps in our region that we're looking for, or how that's all tying together?
The new research looked less at industry gaps, where we still rely on really Kirkwood's labor shed report and skills report on for that. You know, there's gaps in almost every industry sector right now. It's not quite as it's not brain science in terms of what we need. What do we need? Almost everything. So that really hasn't gone down to a very sophisticated level. It's more about the marketing messages and then the geographic areas that we'll target. I think that what we learned from the past efforts is that you're probably not getting people to move halfway across the country for $50,000 jobs. So these tend to be more professional jobs and fewer blue collar jobs, because those are the people that are likely to make a long move to Iowa for that. So it gets narrowed just a little bit in that way. But I think anybody that we see raise their hand and say, I might be interested in come to Marion, we're after them, right? We've got to pursue every lead that possibly comes in.
Wonderful. And then beyond workforce, just in the general piece of it, how is Marion the best partner to the economic alliance efforts as a whole? Like, as a city, what are we doing? We mentioned the lobbying and lobbyists, but are there gaps that we aren't doing that help everybody, or vice versa?
You guys are awesome. And I'm not kidding about that. I mean, I am really, really optimistic about this collaborative growth initiative. We're going to be working together at a level that I don't think we've ever worked together before by being part of this. And that's not to set aside. I mean, DC trip's going to continue to be important. Our work in Des Moines continues to be important. I want to work with you wherever we can. But I think at the top of that list, this initiative brings us into a partnership at a whole nother level from what we can. And I won't be shy about speaking up if there's something that we need more or different from you.
Go ahead, Steve.
So Mayor Nick has talked a number of times that when you're trying to attract people to work or to come to your area, it's not just about the job. It's also about the quality of life, the amenities that the area provides. So I think the cities have been doing quite a bit. So are there areas that you know might be needed for future investments in those areas? Or as you're talking with all of these people and they say, well, why should I move from Dallas up to Cedar Rapids? And then they're going to look at it. And I mean, you got to kind of sell some of that too, not just the job or the area. You've also got to sell the area, the amenities. Why should they want to live here? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how big of a part of your messaging is that? And then maybe you don't know if there's gaps needed in those areas, but as you hear about those, I would also assume that you would be communicating those out.
Yeah. And Steve, the answer to that question is probably a better answer to Sarah's question, right? I mean, cities are largely going to be continuing to build amenities, right? That's sort of beyond the pocketbook and beyond the scope of the Economic Alliance. So I think you need to continue to build the most awesome community that you can build, and you're doing that. It's my belief that we've got to do a much better job of marketing. I think, and it's sort of a good problem to have. If you had a community that just didn't have very much going on, you're talking about, hundreds of millions of dollars to build an awesome community, right? I think that we have an awesome community that we just haven't done a great job of marketing. So people find it sort of accidentally, and people come here for a job or they come here, whatever. And how many times do you hear from people that are like, oh my God, the stuff you guys got going on in Uptown, it's tremendous. Jody said that when she walked in today, right? She lives in North Liberty. She hasn't been in Marion recently. It's like, wow, Uptown Marion's incredible. We have to do, and that's within our scope, right? It doesn't take millions and millions of dollars to become better at marketing, better at telling our story, better at shouting from the rooftops what an awesome place this is. So not to diminish the always ongoing work to try to add amenities and to make everything as awesome as we can. But what we're going to be swinging away at is making sure that we're marketing the stuff that's already in place, because it's a tremendous region already.
I just think one of the regional things that's going to be so neat a year from now is, and I've been telling people this, that a year from now, people are going to be able to get on their bicycle and ride from Uptown Marion to downtown Cedar Rapids on the trail system.
Yeah.
And I go, that is one of the neatest concepts that we've talked about for a long, long time, and it's going to be reality, you know, a year from now.
Yeah.
In 26, in the spring of 26. So to me, that's a really neat concept to be able to market and roll out things like that. So looking forward to that.
Anyone
So
else?
you're hitting on all the things that just came up as I was discussing this position with the mayors and the Economic Alliance, because Doug's right. The cities have done so much to create an infrastructure in a place where people, I think, are going to want to be. But how do we tell that story? And when you talk about, you know, bike trails, for me, that's huge. I'm a biker. I want to go from, I live in North Liberty. I want to go from North Liberty all the way to Marion, right? I want to do that. So things like that. And I think the more that I can get that information from you all, like what do you think is going to sell the region? We can put that into our marketing. And certainly, you know, I'll know that from all the conversations I'm having, but I lived in Marion 20 years ago, and it looks a lot different, but in a really smart way, because Marion always had this nice, you know, area, uptown area, and you've just enhanced it in a way that makes it even more desirable. So I'm looking forward to promoting it.
Anyone else? Thanks for your time. I know it took us a long time to find you, but
Yeah.
welcome to Team Marion, and we're just really thrilled to have you on board, and we look forward to working with you to this, not only sell Marion, but sell the entire region. We're just really proud of what Marion's done in the last few years to really give you material for selling the region, to doing our part to make the region an attractive place. And I agree with Steve. I mean, you know, it's kind of, to me, it's a no-brainer. You know, we're selling a lifestyle and a quality of life as much as helping people, you know, locate jobs here. People move to places not just for their job, but for what they, you know, their job is what they do between weekends.
Yep.
And, you know, we are getting much better at working at the curb appeal of our community and the region. And Marion is certainly, I think, a leader in that, in creating great spaces and great places for people to be. And so we're helping you create the story to sell, and look forward to seeing the results. And Doug, thank you for all you do, and appreciate your updates and being a great partner.
Thanks very much. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, next we have Seth, Aquatic Center. Stick around for this, Jody. This is great.
So the last council meeting, we said we're going to follow up with an update to the Willowwood Park.
Okay.
I know we've talked about the Willowwood pool, but for the general public, just to give some history, the pool was originally built in 1986. At that time, Marion was about a population of 20,000. We've doubled since then. Back in 2021, 2022, we did a feasibility study and really look at our aquatics needs for the community. And it was developed that we needed an aquatic center that was a larger footprint than what is currently existing. That proposed aquatic center is being planned for on 24 acres at 31st in Munair. And so for the replacement of the pool, we did engage that neighborhood back during the feasibility study. And from the study, it was proposed a park redevelopment to replace the existing pool. On Monday, January 13th, we hosted a open house meeting. We specifically targeted, it was an open house for everyone, but we sent 300 door hangers directly to the neighborhoods in proximity to the neighborhood park, in addition to some of our other marketing streams. From that meeting, we had about 60 to 65 attendees in very engaged group that came to that. In addition, we also followed up with an online survey. That survey closed this morning. We had 831 respondents, and we had about a third of those came within a half mile specific of that park. Some of the key themes that we learned specifically from the open house was very similar to when we talked to them in 2021. And in fact, we had quite a few residents come up with their appreciation that there was that promise of follow-up, that we talked to them in 2021 and that we followed up with them and included them into this process. Some of those key themes, we talked about, the desire for the park to remain a park, really interested in natural areas that could incorporate landscaping, splash pad trails. There was expressed concerns over the sound mitigation near the homes. Then obviously there was strong support for trail connections. We did have a few questions about timeline and impact of the aquatic center referendum that came about from that. And then from the surveys, a lot of from the surveys, the key themes from there was very similar to the open house. There were some additional questions. They prioritized some of the amenities there. The playground, splash pad, and trails were the top ranked amenities, but there was also a desire for what we hear with shade, inclusive design, flushable restrooms, also rentable spaces. Heard about pickleball quite a bit from the surveys, which is something that was called out during those surveys for here, but something that we'll include in conversations when we talk about the amenities at the new aquatic center too. There was comments about connectivity, specifically the improved crossings on 35th Street, something that we've talked about in the past with TAC. And then we had a few comments, specifically 6 comments about the tax implications. And those comments, even though represent probably a 0.5% from the survey, is something that we'll continue to address as we're going through this process. So the next steps for Willowwood. We are going to be convening the steering committee. As part of that process, we'll be talking much about Willowwood, about this redevelopment and replacement of the pool. One of those conversations will be the future of Willowwood Pool, the longevity till the construction of a new pool, but also the potential major repairs that could happen over the next few years. We'll have a draft plan completed in March of 2025. We'll have an open house for the whole general public to see that plan. And then we'll have some community outreach with the farmers market moving to Willowwood Park. It seems pretty fitting to be able to talk about that redevelopment there, but also with the pool. Something that we would love to do is be able to have an open house inside look of the pool, of not just the body, but also some of those major repairs that we see, and open up to the public to kind of see some of those items. During this process, we'll be bringing to council some future directional points. There's no direction that needs to be given tonight, but wanted to lay these out for council. When we give these points, we'll be touching base with the steering committee. We'll also have recommendations from staff coming forward, and we're going to be sending out information well before we have these discussion points to be able to talk about these. The first 2 kind of tie together. Some of it's confirming and some of it's directional. The Willowwood Pool operation, keeping that open till the new pool is up and going, but referendum results. So there is going to be thresholds on for repairs for the Willowwood Pool. When we come to those times, how much do we want to invest into the pool, both for if the bond passes, but also if it fails, how much investment do we want to do for those into that body or into that asset of the community. We'll also have the park redevelopment plan that will come forward with what that park will look like. And then long-term and thinking holistically, will come forward too in May with what the operation looks like from an expense and revenue side of things. We know that we have a property that we mow currently, but what does that look like? Is there revenue opportunities? What are those expenses, whether it is addition or reduction into our long-term maintenance plan? And again, this is kind of the next steps. As we're going through the process, we'll have a construction manager at risk in April, all the way leading up to the referendum draft language in July. And we'll continue to come in monthly with these kind of touch bases and potential directional points. In addition to this, we're going to be sending out, we'll update the Gantt chart, the timeline with some of these directional points. We'll also start formulating a FAQ list that we got some of the questions that came from that open house and also the surveys that a lot of the questions that were just frequently asked, that we want to be able to have that resource for everyone so they know exactly, be able to answer all the questions they're going to come up from this process. Any questions?
Go ahead.
I was thinking about this since we met the other day, but and I was thinking about how we've talked a lot about the pool and the aquatic center and how that's kind of put me in my own little information bubble of understanding the reality of the current pool and the lifespan. So my question to you is, through the neighborhood meeting, through the surveying, do you think that the community members in that neighborhood specifically, I mean, I know that they're picking what they like and what they don't like about possibilities, but do you think there is kind of a general knowledge and understanding of the current realities of the pool, or do you think that's still a big educational uphill topic that we'll have to communicate out to folks? Or do you think people are starting to come around to being like, oh yeah, this pool is getting to the end of its lifespan?
Those that were involved with the feasibility study, when we first talked to them, they came to that realization at that time. During this process, there's going to be that education piece, and that's really going to be important for us to continue to engage and educate, to be able to answer those questions, because, you know, there is, you know, we're the, I've been touching this project for about 5 years, so I'm the subject matter expert in that. And, you know, a lot of the people, the general public, you know, I want to be able to share with what we learned as part of those processes, obviously getting their feedback, but I think that the education side of things is always going to need to be included, which, you know, some of those resources being able to provide there on the reasons why, be able to give that feedback. I think just trying to give that as much as possible, but the majority has kind of come to that grasp, especially if they've been to the pool and seen
Yeah, absolutely.
what's going on.
If I can, Mayor, just jump onto that. One of the things that was discussed is as part of the public education efforts with the farmers market now moving over to that park, having a booth, but also being able to take visitors to the farmers market through the facility so that they can see some of the challenges with the existing pool. So that is one aspect of that larger communication effort that we'll be going through so that folks understand kind of what we're doing and why.
Yeah, I really like that idea because, one, it is super transparent. We're literally showing them that, but as pool attendance numbers have dipped over the years, there are a lot of people that haven't seen that for themselves necessarily, that might use a future facility, but aren't using the current facility.
Grant?
Yep. Seth, I think it was maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, I came out and shot some pictures when the pool was empty and there were, you know, cracks that needed to be repaired and the like. So it kind of extending from what Gage just asked about, in terms of the pool's infrastructure, and I'm thinking pumps, filtration, pipes, the containment of the pool, what are the high-risk elements for failure that you worry about day in and day out? I mean, kind of what's on our doorstep now relative to a failure at that facility that would cause us to spend a lot of money?
So we had a major leak in 2018 with the shell. The shell is always of concern with major leaks, and it's also the stuff that we don't see. A lot of the piping infrastructure, as you know, we have very hard water in Marion. So that's the stuff that we can see, that there are processes from a leak detection to be able to detect what's there. But until we get to the summer season and see how much water gallon size that we lose, that's beyond evaporation, is where we kind of find those details. And so we will have some data to show, some of those major repairs that, as you talked about, or things that are going to come up or could come up, that we'll be able to provide some level of what that investment would be to continue running the pool. This is also a facility too that we do have some things that are grandfathered in that are not up to the standard through the state, that will also be dictated by how much repairs we do.
Okay, appreciate that.
That repair in 2018, that was like well over $100,000,
Yeah.
130,000 or something like that. Anyway. Go ahead, Steve.
I think, so one of the questions I've had, and obviously, first of all, I think what we did in bringing everybody together from that neighborhood and giving them the opportunity to provide their input again was absolutely needed. But even before that, one of the questions I had most often was, if the aquatic center is built, is Willowwood Park still going to be a park, or is it going to be sold off? And so at a very, very high level, I think that's still an answer that, while maybe the Willowwood neighborhood understands that better now, I think people on a citywide level still may not understand that. So I think even at a high level, that's one piece as you start communication that still needs to be answered very, very solidly and confirmably as to what the future of that area is going to be. So
Absolutely.
I mean, it goes without saying, there's going to be a lot of public education needed before the bond vote. Go ahead.
Going back to the comments about the residents being able to tour the pool. I know I said this to you, that I like the idea of at the farmers markets being able to, but having an open house at the pool outside of farmers market times, because a lot of people don't go to the farmers market. But I think it'd be good too to have it prior to the pool being filled, so that everyone can see what it actually looks like without the water, because it's way different looking than with the water in it. So yeah, and maybe even do one early spring before, and then in the summer have another one when it is open, people can see how it's being used.
Or they can be coincided with the farmer's market. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Have some with the farmer's market, and then have a couple big open to everybody.
any other questions for Seth? Do you have anything else, Seth?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this brings us to the upcoming agenda review. The first item that is marked is, actually, it's on it's D7 on the fourth page of the agenda. That's the only item marked for discussion by staff. Anything, I guess we'll just take any questions on anything on the agenda that anyone would like to discuss or have questions on. All right, D7. Mike Barkalow.
Good afternoon. I got Matt Morris with me as well. So what we want to talk about is our our new snow and ice program for this year. So back in November, I did give you guys a draft of it. We're now there. The only thing we don't have is the 2080 with Cedar Rapids. We have a verbal agreement with them. But we wanted to take this time and celebrate some of the successes. And so I brought Matt, who's done a lot of the work behind the scenes, and he's out there. The one storm we've had that was a major storm, listening to the radio, it sounded like air traffic controller with everything that was going on. So want to give a big kudos to Matt and let him kind of walk through some of the improvements, the efficiencies and collaborations that we've been doing with our partners and celebrate these successes.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This started 17 months ago, actually. So we as a team, he wants to give me kudos, but there's a lot of other people involved in this, and it starts at the top from you guys down. We went through our policy, looked at a bunch of stuff, worked with, timing. We worked with parks, PD, fire, Cedar Rapids, Lynn County to better serve the area, right? Parks allowed us to store our plow truck in the Lau Park building out there so we can be more efficient, quicker response time. Tower Terrace Road being opened up, it's kind of like a highway now, so we just looked at everything holistically and tried to clean them up. Cedar Rapids, we swapped some areas around so we're not traveling a big distance to cover a bunch of ground. It keeps us on the plows and then keeps them over there. So it really wasn't much. I mean, it's just the opportunity to be able to work on this kind of stuff and do what we need to do.
Even small things like having the conversations with the schools. So an idea that Matt had was, if we know where all the bus stops are, we can not pile snow where the bus stops are. But then when we got talking about how many bus stops there are, and there's 300, I think, just with Marion Independent. By the time we had Linmar, we're like, okay, we can't have the driver avoid that many spots. But at least we're thinking outside the box. How can we do things better with our partners out there? So there's a text group that goes out that Matt sends that's both school districts to let them know, hey, tomorrow we're not doing anything tonight, but if the PD calls us and says, hey, the roads are slick, then Matt knows, okay, I got to go rally the troops and get them out there and get going. And so we're not out there at 3 a.m. just driving the streets to see, should we be out or should we not? We can rely on those partners that are out there and work more as a team instead of our own silo. So just a lot of things in there. Lynn County, so the roads off of 30th Street Drive, like the Diamond Drive that are up there, there's some of those that are partially in Marion. And so we would drive all the way up there to plow the cul-de-sac. Well, Lynn County's there. They're already turning around in the cul-de-sac. They can just drop their plow and do it. And then we don't have to go up there. So things like that just make almost too much sense. So a lot of good changes in this, and and next year we'll probably have more changes, but we're just gonna keep getting better and better. But want to celebrate, this is a huge success in my mind, so I just wanted to celebrate that with City Council and bring that before you. So we've already been initiating this, and then we have a separate operating procedure that we have with our actual plow drivers, but this is the streets and how we do those type of things.
Certainly appreciate constantly trying to improve what we do and looking for ways to be more efficient and more effective and cost conscious and all of that. So really appreciate the attention to that. Any questions? Go ahead.
So first, I echo everything the mayor just said. I think that collaboration and efficiency in these type of programs are super important, especially as budget situations get tighter for a lot of our communities. Question I had though, when you mentioned the swap, is that what we were talking about, like in the area kind of by Lindale, like the Cedar Rapids coming over? Could you kind of explain that a little bit more for folks to understand that?
So what I'm talking about is we call it Pepperwood. There's an area behind the old Outback. It's off 40th Street Drive.
Yep.
So we'd have to drive all the way over there and just plow that little area. So we're driving through, I don't know, it's 15, 20 minute drive over there, plow that and come back. So when we met with Cedar Rapids, they're like, well, we could do that area if you guys take like Tama Street. I forgot another point I want to make, but so Armar Drive, we used to turn around at Armar Drive on our, we call it the red route, right? That's the main boulevard all the way to PD, other than 151 east of 13. There's a section there, it's a little piece of Cedar Rapids between Armar and 100. So they're like, if you pick that up, we don't have to drive all the way over there, and then you don't have to drive all the way over to the Pepperwood area. So we kind of swapped that. One thing that we did add in here was Armar Drive wasn't a main route for anybody. That's a main route now because of the emergency room. You know, in a meeting we had with Cedar Rapids and Lynn County, I pointed that out. I was like, we should be all hitting this thing a lot, because from 100 to vice versa, we used to, a year ago or 2 years ago, we'd drive down to the city limits of Marion, pick up our plows, drive up to CMR Court, plow that, and then drive back. Well, now that emergency room's there, both jurisdictions plow Armar to 100. We turn around there, they turn around. So it's always open, right? Just things like Mike said with Orion Drive, you know, those type of areas, those are quite a bit of a drive for us. So we can be more focusing on, you know, in town, and they catch those areas where they're at. So
That all makes sense to me. Thank you for noticing that and taking the lead on those conversations with those other entities.
it's been a great partnership with Cedar Rapids, Lynn County. It's even with the state, I communicate with all of them very regularly.
Awesome.
Well,
Yeah, you guys do a fantastic job. You always hear from residents saying how great the streets look after a big snow, and you just do a fantastic job. But I do have one, you said you would make some changes next year. I do have one suggestion. Finally add my street to the #1 priority list. I mean, I've been asking for years, and no one ever adds it to the #1 priority list, but hey, next year.
We'll take a vote on that.
yeah,
We have no comment.
yeah. Put
We'll
him
take that comment
last on
under
the list,
advisement.
please.
In
This,
all seriousness, no, I can't thank people above me for allowing us, you know, I speak for the other managers and the other guys at our work. We're doing what we need to do. And it's because of all of our leadership.
how's everyone liking the new facility?
We're working out the gremlins, but it's great.
Good. All right. I have just one question for me. You talked about the bus stops, the school bus stops. What about the transit bus stops? Are we,
So they are listed in here.
we take them into account in terms of,
Yeah, so.
because I've had, not recently, but in past years, I've had people email me saying, oh, I had to walk through whatever, 5 feet of snow to get to the bus stop, and it's covered with snow and,
So Parks actually does the bus stops themselves. We're looking at, we did get some money through the CMPO to upgrade our bus stops
Yeah.
areas. And so with that money, we're gonna do them differently. So it's easier not only to maintain them, but then for the people, you know, do we churn a certain bus stop so it doesn't have wind directly at it? You know, what direction is the best depending on right of way and all that stuff that we can do. Cause right now you'll see them on Business 151, they're standing in the ditch waiting for the bus.
yeah,
And they're
right.
freezing. And so
right.
getting those amenities, so at least they can get the wind blocked and have a bench to sit on while they're waiting for the bus. So yeah, that's gonna be something that we're gonna continue to work on. Obviously, if we know there's a place there with a shelter, we're not gonna blow the snow on that to leave it for parks. But yeah, that's something that we have to work collaboratively, even in the uptown. So when we pile the snow in the uptown, because there's nowhere to push it to with the businesses, so we gotta block the parking stalls and then come in at night and load all that snow up. So working with the parking department, everybody come in at 2 o'clock in the morning, so it's not Public Works coming in at 2 to clean up what we can with the big equipment, and then Parks coming in later. We're gonna come in at the same time and work collaboratively, so it's one time. Everybody's loading it up and we're hauling it out. Done.
Just push it to Wills Street. He lives very close to uptown. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I think most people would believe that when you talk about snow removal, it's a pretty black and white thing, you know, that it's very straightforward. you drive the plow, move the snow and that's it. But I think one of the things that came out this year, in fact, I think it was on the front page of the Gazette, if I recall correctly, and that is where the city and you guys are now using molasses-based applications to try to improve the process before the snow hits. I've had several people talk to me about that they really think that's a neat idea. So again, I think that's an example where you're thinking outside the box. You're saying, how can we improve and do a better job at what we're doing? And so I think that's a great example that as a department, as a group, I don't know how that came about. But I think to me, that's a great example that you're not just doing status quo. You're saying, how can we do a better job?
It's the Marion way, Steve.
Well, I agree with Mayor Nick on that. It is Marion Way, but that actually came through collaboration with Cedar Rapids and our surrounding partners. You know, we got our ears open. We're listening, we're looking, we're paying attention to things.
And that was something where we heard about it and like, hey, let's try a little bit and see how
Yeah.
it works. And, you know, if it doesn't work, we didn't do all of it. We only did 1,000 ton, but then we could try it and see. And
Okay. Well, thanks for all you do and for making us look good.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions on anything on the agenda? Okay, that brings us to closed session.
Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn to closed session regarding litigation and real estate transactions as permitted under section 21.51C and section 21.51J of the Code of Iowa, 3 separate matters.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn to closed session as permitted under the code of the state of Iowa. May we have the legal counsel statement, please?
On the subject matter of the closed session, and it would be appropriate to go into closed session under these circumstances.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or discussion before we vote? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jensen?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Miskman?
Yes.
Mayor Abu
Yes.
Ms. Menzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brandt?
Yes.
Mr. Sterned?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for joining us. We're now adjourned to closed session.